Didn't know what I could do, but I was determined that I'm going to do something. The next morning, this happened on the day of Erev Yom HaZikaron. So I woke up on Memorial Day morning feeling just really depressed and a little bit devastated. I woke up and I was like, the police, the police in my country, who I am as a citizen am meant to rely on, like they see me as the enemy. They see me as the problem. And what happens if tomorrow I need a policeman? What happens if tomorrow, my car gets stolen, or, I have a burglary? Or what happens if I need the police? And they say, okay, what's your name? And I say, Alex Sinclair. And they say, you're at the bottom of the queue now, mate. You're at the bottom of the back of the line. Like that. That was a really devastating feeling. That feeling that the police are not for me.
Alex, it feels like you are having a moment now. So,
yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good way. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I'm having a moment. It's,
and listen, let's.
A little crazy.
Was it Churchill or Abba Ibn who said, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste"?
Everybody's ready? Okay, wonderful. So let's do it. Okay, welcome back to the Pluralist Podcast from both sides of the ocean. Today, we're going to talk to educator and author Dr. Alex Sinclair. Last week, Alex was detained for wearing a kippah with an Israeli and Palestinian flag woven into it, after which his kippah was returned to him without the Palestinian flag that was cut out, an act that in any other place in the world would have been called anti-Semitic. The story went viral, and we want to talk today to Alex about the bigger picture, what it means for those of us who love and care deeply about Israel and are struggling with the reality of how it's behaving right now.
Alex, so glad you're able to join us. We wanted to have a chance to really talk to you, but let's just, take a step back and to say that Alex Sinclair, you are a Jewish educator and writer based at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where you teach an international MA program in Jewish education, which I'm also a graduate of. And spent years working with leading Jewish institutions in Israel and around the world, focusing on Israel diaspora relations and liberal Zionism. You, Alex, are the author of Loving the Real Israel, which explores how we engage honestly with the realities of Israeli society, and 2 other novels. And I'm told that a sequel is coming soon, so stay tuned. I don't know if Netflix has picked up that book yet to make it into a movie, but maybe now it will. And of course, you live in Modi'in, as I'm told, sometimes also with your adult children. Alex, really a pleasure. Thank you for making time to be with us today as we're recording. Welcome.
It's my absolute pleasure. I'm really grateful for the invitation to have a chat with you guys, with Orly and Josh. Josh, you and I go back some time, and I've always really valued your colleagueship and your counsel, and I'm really what you're doing and your work is really, really important. So,
well, there's no accounting for bad taste, but that's okay. And Alex, before we get into the, incident of the moment, I think, can you just give us a little bit of your background? When did you come on Aliyah? What's your home life like in terms of where did you come from, and what has informed your worldview, or your hashkafa, as we like to say, as it is today?
Sure. I grew up in London, England, to a kind of a pretty, I guess I would say ordinary, average Jewish English family, not especially religious, very sort of Zionist in a kind of, in an English way, meaning we would go to Israel on vacation. As a kid, was in Israel on vacation, I guess 2-3 times. And my parents were very involved in, and still are in sort of all kinds of charity stuff, raising money for Israel, etc., etc. Not especially religious, twice a year shul goers, etc., etc. And I, was, as I got older, I came back and forth to Israel more and more times when I was a teenager or a student. So this was the days before Birthright, but I was on, as a teenager on a kind of Birthright style tour, I guess, and then came back here for more in-depth stuff, spent a year here studying. And then in 97, I came here to do my doctorate at Hebrew University in Jewish education. And then I met my wife, who is Israeli. She was born here. She's the daughter of Olim, people who emigrated to Israel from, her mother's from America, father's from Canada. So we got married, and one of the I was getting funding for my doctorate. One of the conditions for the funding was that after my doctorate, I would go and work work abroad in the diaspora for 5 years. So one of the conditions of us getting married was that I had to make aliyah to promise her that we were going to come back after some point after being in America. So I moved to America. I lived in New Jersey, taught at JTS between 2001, 2007, the end of 2001 and 2007. We moved back to Israel in 2007 to Modi'in, where, as you say, I live and I love. That's...
and your wife is also involved in liberal Jewish education, right? With the Tali system.
Yeah.
And
my wife was also involved in the liberal Jewish educational world. As we have been saying to our kids since they were age 0, don't you dare go into Jewish education. We want you to become lawyers and businessmen and have a proper job.
Go and make an honest living. Exactly. Yeah.
It's super super important.
Exactly.
But before getting into sort of the details of the incident, which obviously we want you to recount, I do want to ask you to share with us and our listeners what prompted you to actually begin wearing a kippah with an Israeli and Palestinian flag. And I should say that I read your Haaretz op-ed, and you described it so beautifully that I really want you to share with us this story.
Okay. So I did write about this online, and I'll say I'll talk about it now, and it is there in Haaretz. It's behind the paywall. I think that, and this is a totally separate conversation, maybe for a separate podcast or not for your podcast, I think that one of the most important things that people can do today to do tikkun olam, to repair the world, is to subscribe to a quality newspaper, whether that is in America or in Israel. I'm deeply worried about what's going on in terms of the whole way people get you. So I think that subscribing to Haaretz is a good thing. People should do it, and I don't get any percentage from them or anything. But
no royalties.
Anyways,
and we can put the article in the notes of the podcast. Yeah.
Oh, great. As I say, I grew up not wearing a kippah, and not even would be something that wouldn't even have dreamed of doing. And I started to get more serious about my Judaism when I was a student, in my I was 18, 19, 20, 21, that kind of age. And then like I said, I was back and forth to Israel on various programs. And at some point I decided I wanted to start wearing a kippah. But wearing a kippah was always, even from the very beginning, a complicated decision for me in Israel. And I'll tell you a story here that is not in the Haaretz article, actually, which is that when I was in Israel 95, that 95-96 academic year, which was when Rabin was assassinated in November 1995. And I remember walking around the streets with, I can't remember, days or a few week or 2 or 3 after the assassination, with a kippah on, and I had it was a shalom achshav, or a peace now badge,
shalom chaver or something, yeah.
Shalom chaver. It was some kind of peace badge. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was some kind of peace badge or something, a pin, right? A badge that I was wearing, on my t-shirt. And somebody stopped me and they said, what are you doing? You can't wear both of those things. There's a contradiction between the kippah and the badge. Those two things don't go together. So even then, at the very beginning, I'm like, look, I want to wear a kippah. I love wearing a kippah, and I wrote in the Haaretz article a little bit about what it does to me, and to kind of give me a sense that, I think there's something powerful about wearing a kippah. There's always a non-zero, teeny tiny part of you which is conscious of it, and that non-zero, teeny tiny part of you is always saying to you, try to be a better person, try to think about what it means to be a Jew, try to think about what it means. I like that. I like what it does to me, kind of spiritually and ethically and all that kind of stuff. But walking around Israel with the kippah means that people associate you with a particular political and religious camp. And that religious and political camp is very far from who I really am inside me. Politically, obviously, makes sense, the fact that it's kind of clear already from the beginning of this conversation, that I lean left politically. I define myself as a Zionist, as a liberal Zionist. I'm sure we'll talk more about what that means, but I certainly lean left politically, and that's not true for most, with some exceptions, but for most people who walk around Israel with a kippah on. And also religiously, look, I'm not Orthodox. I'm observant. I'm pretty frum, I guess, in certain ways. I keep Shabbat, I keep Kashrut. I do a whole bunch of things which sort of, are similar to what other Orthodox people do, but my mindset and my theology and my kind of who I'm I'm egalitarian. I belong to an egalitarian synagogue where men and women sit together and women read Torah and your viewers know I don't know this. I don't have to go into details about what it means to be an egalitarian, but in Israel you do, and so people associate you with. So I was walking around with a kippah and feeling kind of really very ambivalent about it.
Maybe just 1 second, just for our listeners, we can just give a point of reference here that in Israel, people can be associated in political and social camps by their head covering. And it's very, very identifiable to the untrained eye. Some may see a sea of black cats and think that they're all the same, when, the trained eye will be able to differentiate between different Hasidic courts and different, non-Hasidic courts, who wears a knitted kippah versus a black velvet kippah. And that's a whole seminar course that we could do for one thing. But just to make sure our listeners are aware of your point.
But I want to say that I think it goes deeper than that. It is much more extensive in the sense that I think the tragedy of Israel is that we know that, human rights have become associated with the left, and Judaism have become associated with racism and extremism and homophobia and misogynism. And this is really the tragedy. And I think this is part of what, we at Reform Judaism and in other liberal spaces are trying to change, right? So to reclaim Judaism and to definitely offer Israelis a way where you can be both a liberal and a Jew. And it really goes right to what you're referring to, right? That you don't have to choose, that you actually can wear a kippah and assert your Judaism without meaning you're against, you're
I think that's exactly right.
Or something.
I think that's exactly right. It was me trying to reclaim my liberal Judaism as a kippah wearer. I think that's so that's really what it was. So that's why I came out. I had all kinds of other ideas, but I came up to I'll have a kippah with both flags on, and that's my way of saying I'm wearing a kippah, and I'm something. I'm not. I'm not, quote unquote, like you, other kippah wearer over there. I'm a liberal Zionist, and I believe that Zionist, and I believe that Palestinian nationalism is also a thing, and that the Palestinian people also have a right to national self-determination and a legitimate historical connection to this land, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's hard to do that. In the Haaretz article, I have this line that it's hard for a piece of cloth to convey all of that. As Josh said, seminar papers worth of kind of a philosophical and theological kind of struggling. But I tried, and it was a way that I was able to kind of reclaim that custom, that Jewish custom for myself in a way that made it feel good for me and made me feel that I was able to do it as a kind of as an authentic self. Understanding, not naive, and I understand that flag before October the 7th also, and certainly after October the 7th, is not an easy flag for some people to see, and we can talk about that. But it was this was a way for me to express my Jewish identity.
And up until this incident, I'm sure you have gotten a lot of responses before, right? Because you've been wearing this for a long time. So could you share with us just a few of the responses? None of them were as extreme as the one you experienced last week, but still.
Very, yes, yeah. And wait, and can you just say also, where did you get that? Did you get this from the Kippah man on Ben Yehuda Street, or or did you have it custom made, or are there Banot Ulpana sitting there, knitting that kippah for you?
It's it's not exactly an item you buy off the shelf in the usual kippah store. I went to a well-known kippah store in downtown Jerusalem, and this is now many years ago. Since I can't remember if I printed it out or I drew it out on a piece of paper, and I said to him, "Here, this is a little bit of a strange request. Will you do this for me?" And he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he said, "Well, if you pay me for it, I'll do it for you." So I paid to get it custom made. I actually went back to him twice. I think the first time around I got two made, one and a spare. They both got lost over the years. One blew away in the wind once. One I don't even know what happened to it. And then I went back to him again several years later, and I said, "Remember me? Can you do me another one?" And so he did me another one. Now, I don't know. I haven't managed to get to Jerusalem. It's been such a crazy week since this happened. Next week, hopefully one day I'll get to Jerusalem and go downtown and knock on his door of the shop and see if he'll do me another one. I don't know if he will now. Joking apart, he doesn't want demonstrations outside his shop. That's why I haven't really been saying the name of his shop, because I don't want to create cause people to be demonstrating outside of his shop. Oh, you made a kippah for that, of course. Whatever. But so that's how I got it made. But right now I've had so many offers of people saying, "I'll make you a new one," and I'll so it is kind of really heartwarming that people who know how to crochet a kippah have been volunteering to make me a new
and you
one.
mentioned that before it was sort of a cause for conversation, right, with people who don't agree with you once they saw it.
Yeah, so that's right. So that was the question you asked already. So I've had some amazing conversations over the years because of this kippah. Not this one. I'm wearing a regular until I get it done. I'm wearing it. But it's mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. I think did I write about these? I think I wrote briefly about these in the piece, but I'll talk them through with you now because they were really amazing examples, and there are others as well. One was with this one I didn't talk about in the piece. So I was a few months ago. My son got married. My oldest son got married, and I was searching for a suit. Thank you. I was searching for a suit shopping. There's not that many. The demand for suits in Israel is only slightly more than the demand for kippot with Palestinian and Israeli flags on them. As you know, Israelis, it's not really a. So I was at a little suit store in Modi'in as well, and the guy there running it or managing it at that time was like a religious guy with a black kippah. You know, Josh, as you mentioned earlier, you can tell a lot about people from the kind of kippah that they wear. So he was wearing a sort of a black velvet kippah, kind of a modern, probably. Again, you do all these generalizations, people, which is one of the reasons why I struggle with it a bit. To me, he looked like a sort of Haredi, but modern Haredi kind of guy. Obviously, he's Haredi looking because of the kippah, but running a suit shop, so he's working. Anyway, all of that stuff is all complicated and not to the point. And he comes up to me, he says, "Is that what I think it is on your kippah? Is that a Palestinian flag? What the hell are you doing?" You're not shouting at me, but he wasn't happy. So I started explaining and talking, and we had a great conversation. For I don't know, it must be like we were in the suit shop there for 10 minutes, and we're talking, and he's telling me how he feels about it, and I'm trying to explain to him my position. And look, we parted, we shook hands, we parted. He didn't agree with me, and I didn't agree with him, and I wouldn't expect that. But there was a moment of mutual listening and respect and understanding, which really does not happen very often in Israeli society. You know, you guys in America, Josh, you know that American society is polarized and is different from how it was years ago when people could talk over the aisle with each other, and already you know what that's like here as well. But it doesn't happen very often at all. And so this was a moment, and there'd been other moments like this as well, where I really felt, wow, okay, I was able to have this, and so that was really, and there's been other moments like that where I've, had those kind of really meaningful conversations. I'll give you another example. I was in a supermarket in Modi'in, also in very close to my home, actually in the same shopping center as where that suit shop is. I just realized that they're in the same. It was a different. It was these situations happened. I don't remember, years apart probably. This was a longer ago. This and in the supermarket, I'm walking around buying my groceries or whatever it was, and in many Israeli supermarkets, a lot of the cashiers and people who work in the warehouse are Palestinian Israelis, right? Arab Israeli citizens who are ethnically and culturally and nationally in many ways Palestinian. All right, they're 20% of so-called Arab Israeli citizens, even though that's, I guess you've done this on the podcast, or maybe will do at some point, about how they call themselves, how others call them. Anyway, so she comes up to me and she says, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us. We've seen we've noticed your kippah. I assume all of us means all of the Palestinian staff have noticed it, and they've said it. And do you see that guy walking around?
Yes, not just thank you on behalf of the entire supermarket, right? It was
right, exactly. Thank you for shopping at Superstar. And that was all she wanted. Like, we didn't have a conversation about it. She kind of felt that she wanted to come and say that to me. And I have had other situations where I have had conversations with Palestinians.
No, that she felt seen, but right?
She felt seen. I think that's exactly it. I think that's exactly it. She felt seen in a way. And to be seen by somebody wearing a kippah is really, that's unusual, and I think she felt that's, and I felt, look, I'm one little person. I really don't, I'm not out there. There are people out there who you both know, and we know, who are out there. I know in the territories, day in, day out, week in, week out, doing really incredibly brave stuff, being protected presence and visiting Palestinian villages, and there's people who work in politics who do this, and I'm doing nothing like that. I've been on some of these. I've been on programs. I've been on encounter programs, which I'm sure some of your listeners have been on, and all these. But at the end of the day, I'm a middle class coward living in a middle-class town, and this is one thing that I can do. But that was a moment where I really felt that, okay, I'm doing something like that. That Palestinian woman has maybe been changed in some way by this interaction. I hope that religious guy was also changed by someone, and so it's something. So the kippah is, some people have said to me, oh, your kippah, it's a gimmick, and this, you're trying to draw attention to yourself, and it's really not that. It's like, this is something that, even though I know it's, in some people's eyes, it's difficult to see, it feels really, really meaningful to me, having worn it for many, many years.
So let's, if you could take us now to last week's incident, which was very different from what you experienced up until now, to those of our listeners or viewers who haven't heard about this. So just, Tell us what happened.
Okay. Has anyone not heard about this? It's insane. Like, I feel like I know. Anyway.
Yeah,
For anyone who hasn't heard about it yet, that's fine. That means you're not, if you haven't heard about it, it means you're not on social media, which is very healthy, and continue to not be on social media, because that's probably the thing.
And neither read Haaretz or the Jerusalem Post.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe that'll.
And you may have heard of
anyway.
CNN as well. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. Can you? It's crazy. Oh my God. I'm sitting in a cafe also, and all of these stories take place in Modi'in. And Modi'in is a boring, middle-class, suburban city.
Yeah.
It's suburbia. It is Israeli suburbia. It's
just say that Modi'in's halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, right? And
yeah,
so
about halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. It's not so far from the airport. It's within the Green Line. I think that's also important. You know, it's within pre-1967 borders, and it's, I don't know, it's the sort of the Israeli equivalent of Teaneck, New Jersey, or something like that. And I say that not to insult Teaneck, New Jersey, but to praise it, because I love Modi'in, and I like suburbia. So I'm sitting there in a cafe. There's the main kind of downtown drag, where there's lots of cafes. This cafe's got like al fresco seating. It's not an indoor cafe. They have a counter inside, and then most of the seats are outside on the sidewalk. And so I'm sitting there with my laptop. I sit at this place the whole time. It's my second office. You know, I work at home a lot of the time, so I go and sit there for a change of scenery twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. I spend much too much money on coffee there than I should. And I'm sitting there, and a guy comes up to me, a religious guy wearing a kippah, and starts shouting at me, "Your kippah is illegal. Your kippah is illegal. It's incitement." This is a word that we will come back to in a second. It's illegal. So I said to him what I said to the guy in the suit shop, and what I've said to countless other people. I said, "Listen, it's not illegal. Do you want to sit down and talk about it? You know, I put my laptop away. I'm happy to talk politics with you. We can talk about it in a respectful way. Do you want? Let's talk about it." No. He continues to shout at me.
Was he a young guy?
He was older than me. He was maybe about 60, I guess. You know, he's an older guy. I mean, it's a good question, because, you know, and this is maybe for a whole nother topic, but in terms of the kind of the young generation in Israel has become more extreme over over recent years.
Yeah.
So he says, "I'm going to call the police on you." So I go, "You do what you have to do. Have a nice day." And I went back to my laptop. Did
it occur to you that he would actually call the police on you?
Oh my God, not for a
in a
second.
million years,
Like,
right?
the guy's venting steam, and that's what Israelis like to do. They like to vent steam, and that's a kind of, shout at somebody. You know, that's your kind of morning exercise instead of yoga in Israel. And so he's fine. I didn't think another moment about it. But then 5 minutes later, 2 police officers, a policewoman and a policeman, approach me, and they say the same thing with an addition. They say that your kippah is illegal, it is incitement, and we are detaining you. Now, I mean, there's a couple of funny things about this, I guess. Funny, first of all, I did try to say to them, it's illegal. I don't think it's illegal, and they weren't having any of it. And then I didn't know what this Hebrew word they said to me, "Ata me'ukav," which means you are detained. Now, I didn't know what this word meant. My Hebrew was okay. But they did not. I obviously missed the lesson at Ulpan, where they taught us, legal and police procedural language.
Arrest versus detainment.
Exactly. Yeah. I missed that class. So I had no idea what she was saying to me. I thought she was saying atamukar, which means you are known. I'm like, what the hell is she saying? Atamukar, you know me, but you don't. I had no idea. So I was a little bit okay. So anyway, then she says, "You're coming with us." She makes me give her my laptop and my phone. I say, "Can I phone my wife to tell her what's going on?" No, she takes everything from me and escorts me to the police car, which is just parked on the sidewalk there, just a 10-second walk from where I'm sitting.
And so everybody is looking at you in the cafe, and like, what runs through your mind? I mean, it's
a big scene. Yeah.
So here's the thing. People have said to me, "Didn't anybody start filming?" And I haven't seen any film on social media pop up saying, "Oh, here's I saw this happen." Now, I think there are some extenuating circumstances to that, which are that, first of all, I was, like I said, it's on the pavement. I was in a little bit of a kind of a corner. I wasn't surrounded by 2 other tables right next to me. They were like 2 tables away. So maybe people didn't see exactly what was going on at once. And also, I did not make a fuss. I didn't start shouting. I'm a good, like I said, I live in a boring city, and I'm a boring, nice Jewish boy from North London. So if the police say, "You're coming with us," I'm like, okay, I guess I'm coming with you. Like
right. I was asking, did you sit on the floor and cross your arms and refuse to, chain yourself to the espresso machine.
I didn't.
And you know,
I totally didn't, because it's like not. I'm like, it's not how I think. It's not how I roll. I mean, it's like I've seen people do. I've been at demonstrations where people do that, you know, and I'm like, oh, good for them. But I'm anyway. So only at the very end, when she took my phone and then when she said, no, you're not allowed to make a phone call, then I turned around to the table next to and I sort of said, can somebody film this? But it was over so quickly.
Yeah.
Like maybe people didn't have the chance. Anyway, I haven't seen anything. I want to, there's this phrase in Hebrew, ladun l'chaf zchut, to judge favorably, judge people
to give people the benefit
and I kind
of the doubt, basically.
Give people, exactly, great, thank you. Yeah, to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that, I don't think it was because people were like, oh, to hell with him, let the police take him, good for him. I think it was
just haven't noticed. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's what it was, yeah.
So they took me to the police car. Mm-hmm.
Took me to the police car. I emptied my pockets. I sat in the back seat with the male officer, and the woman officer was driving. Another fact is that I'm so naive. During this journey, it's a 1-minute journey from the cafe to the police station, and I'm trying to engage them in conversation. I'm trying to say, listen, I know that you think that I think I'm in the suit shop with the suit man again. I said, I know that you think that what I'm saying is not. I think that I understand that your position is legitimate, but we live in a pluralistic society, and my position also is. I was trying to have a political conversation with them, but the police officer was like, no, there's no such thing as Palestine, no such thing as a Palestinian flag. You're being detained. That's it.
At this point,
we get to
Alex or Orly, actually, can you just give us a little bit of background on why this is illegal, in terms of the displaying of a Palestinian flag? I mean, Orly, Iraq has done lots in this, and Anat Hoffman has made, many years ago, a big activist stink about this, let's say, just for our listeners to understand what the charge is exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we must say that displaying a Palestinian flag is not illegal. Okay. There is not such offense in our law books. What they usually are saying is that it can cause the disruption of the peace or of the order, of the public order. And this is why they sometimes not allow the displaying of this flag. However, both the courts and the Attorney General have published guidelines that said, because of freedom of expression and the importance of political freedom of expression, this is something that should not be used to detain people, right? So like saying that this is illegal is fake news and it's wrong. It's just not the case, okay? If a person does it in such a way that somehow encourages, hatred, or then this could be problematic. But obviously what, Alex has been doing is not illegal and had no basis whatsoever to detain him.
I would just add that the work of organizations like Iraq is so critical and so important. This because if it were not for them, there would not be all of these cases that have gone to the Supreme Court and have resulted in those clearer resolutions. So it's such important work, and folks who are listening to this, again, I haven't been asked to say this, just like it's just really important work to support and to educate yourself about Iraq and others in that sphere as well. So
you get to the police station.
Get to the police station, and they walk me in, and we go to a cell, and they say, in there. That's where I was like, and I remember actually said it. I said, seriously? Like my Hebrew deserted me, and like, seriously? And she said, yeah. She said, get in Hebrew. She said, if you don't go in there yourself, we will put you in there by force. By the way, I should have said this was this phrase. I think I wrote about this in my original Facebook post about it. This phrase that they use the whole way along, starting at the cafe. If you don't come with us of your own accord, we will take you by force. If you don't get in the police car right now, we will put you in there by force. If this was there, and it came up again at the very end of the story, which we'll get to just in 1 second. So I sat in this police cell. I go in again. They took off my belt. They made me do the whole thing like in a movie. Hands against the wall, frisk me down, and slam the door. So I'm like, holy shit. I was still, the crazy thing, I was still having this like naive, I was sitting there and I was so calm because I was like, any minute now, the old, wizened, grey-haired captain of the police station is going to open the door and say, I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Sinclair, this young police officer got a little bit overexcited. She shouldn't have done that. Please accept our apology. Have a nice day. I totally thought that was what was going to happen. And it didn't, obviously. I sat there for around 20 minutes. I didn't have my watch. So this is guesswork, in terms of, but working out the time backwards, I guess, in terms of, I figured out it must have been about that. They take me back to the street, to the front of the police station, to the street. They give me my bag with my computer, etc. in it, my phone, and she's holding my kippah. And she says, okay, you're free to go. And I say, but can I have my kippah back? No, you can either go now without the kippah, or you can go back into the cell by force. We'll put you back in the cell forcibly. So I said, I don't want to go back in the cell. I don't want any force, but that kippah is important to me. Can I have it back? So that's when she goes back inside. 10 seconds later, she comes back. I didn't see it happen, but she comes back with the kippah kind of cut in, a third of the kippah cut out. You can see the photos.
She took out scissors from her desk and cut out the Palestinian flag part.
Yeah. And gives me the kippah back in this kind of mutilated way. I'll say, somebody told me as a joke, I have no idea if this is true or not, that the police have now gone and removed all scissors from the police station. That might be one of these like memes that's going around. But anyway, so she gave me the kippah back cut up like that. And that was it. I went home, with my wife. I was shaken. Started to, I went on to a couple of social media groups, WhatsApp groups I'm part of, and said, this just happens to be, can anyone help me, point me to a lawyer who can help me with this? I'd figure out what on earth I can do. And then the rest is, I guess, history.
And it's really, it really blew up very quickly. And I want to ask you soon what what did you do afterwards? But I have to say that, it seems, someone told me, it's shocking but not surprising, right? So everything that is happening around us so many unbelievable things are happening, but we are still surprised by things, including this incident, which is like, I can't believe this happened, right? I mean, it's still beyond comprehensible, even though, we know the police, we know that, the police is, the policemen are doing things that Ben-Gvir, right, their minister, would like. And so it seems like something that could have happened, but still it's unbelievable, right? So I'm sort of asking you, what did you feel like? Obviously we're shocked, but just trying to imagine what went through your mind. I mean, after that,
it was a whole mix of emotions. There was like kind of disbelief, like, did that really just happen? That's insane. And relief. There was definitely relief, because I was in that prison cell. I'm thinking, am I going to be here overnight? Like, what the hell is going on? Am I being taken to court? I had no idea what was going on. So when I was let out, there was definitely relief, because being in a prison cell, I've not had that experience before in my life, and so that was a
real Shehechianu moment, I think.
I didn't say a Shehechianu in there. Maybe
Okay.
So there was that. There was anger, like, how dare she do that? What the hell? What, UTAF, as probably can't, people say. So there was definitely that as well. A sense of like, okay, because one of the first things, as I said, I went on this group and I was like, I need a lawyer. Like, I am not gonna, like, this cannot pass. Like, this, I'm not gonna I don't know what I can do. I didn't know what I could do, but I was determined that I'm going to do something. File a complaint. I don't know what. Didn't know. So I was like, also that, and also I think that the next morning I woke up. The next morning, this happened on the day of Erev Yom HaZikaron, the day of when that evening was Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day. So I woke up on Memorial Day morning, feeling just really depressed and a little bit devastated, because what I'm about to say, this didn't kind of trickle through to me in that immediate aftermath. But I woke up and I was like, the police in my country, who I am as a citizen am meant to rely on, like, they see me as the enemy. They see me as the problem. And what happens if tomorrow I need a policeman? What happens if tomorrow, my car gets stolen, or, I have a burglary, or I don't even, what happens if I need the police and they say, okay, what's your name? And I say, Alex Sinclair. And they say, you're at the bottom of the queue now, mate. You're at the bottom of the back to the back of the line. Like that was a really devastating feeling, that the police, because as you said, Orly, they've become politicized. They've become politicized police, and who are focused on these things rather than actually solving crime. But that feeling that the police are not for me, and are not there to protect and serve, as you say in the States.
And I think
actually see me as that was devastating.
And I think we have to remember that at the time when you were detained, like around that time, a boy was murdered in a pizza place in Petah Tikva. I mean, the violence is increasing like never before. I mean, there is so much the police needs to do, and instead they go and detain you for wearing a kippah. I mean, it's really mind-boggling when we're thinking what, the huge challenges that we have to our national security these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually want to say something about
So
that. I mean, you're right. It was. Can I just say something about the pizzeria? This listeners may not know. As you said, there was a murder in a pizzeria. A guy, young, I think 21 years old, who was working at the pizzeria. Some other kids, like young kids, like teenage kids, came in and were spraying spray paint there. Like we have this kind of stupid graffiti spray paint that we use on Yom Ha'atzmaut. Some people do, and he asked them nicely not to do it to mess up the shop. They waited outside till his shift finished, and they stabbed the guy to death. Now, I'm very appreciative of all of the support that I've got from this story and it's really been really heartwarming. And I've got it from the reform movement and from Iraq and from all kinds of organizations. But really, what happened to me was nothing. What happened to me was 20 minutes in a cell and a kippah that's cut up that I can go and replace. This guy was stabbed to death, and this stuff is happening all over the place. Really, really troubled, devastating places of society. This incident with the police is like one kind of a manifestation of it, which, like I say, is nothing compared to the terrible things that are going on all around us. And we as a society, we have to wake up, because this is it's devastating.
So I think that's actually an important segue to ask about the bigger picture. As we, we Jewish education and Talmud geeks like to say, my nafka like what will come from this, do you think? And I'm thinking a lot about your book that I love and have used many times, Loving the Real Israel. Is this the real Israel, and is this the Israel that you continue to teach? And what's your message to both Israelis and Jews around the world to say, how do we struggle and wrestle with this being the real Israel, and sort of putting this in the context of, a conversation on what liberal Zionism means here when we're seeing such, I would say, anti-liberal behavior, where someone can get arrested and detained for just wearing a provocative kippah.
Yeah. Look, maybe I'll answer that very briefly on the kind of very small technical level, and then in more depth with the bigger questions that you're asking. On the technical level, I have filed a complaint to the police sort of official complaints department. Everyone tells me that I should not expect any kind of a sort of positive or supportive outcome, because that's also basically controlled by Ben Gvir. I'm in touch with this lawyer, and we're sort of considering next steps. One of those might be a civil lawsuit, but I don't know yet. What we're going to.
I do know a good lawyer, by the way.
Die down and then figure out. Okay. Oh, or is it, Orly, you're a lawyer as well? Is that is that true? I didn't know. Okay,
she's all of our lawyers.
Okay, so listen. So maybe we'll talk afterwards offline. Yeah. But I was put in touch with this lawyer by a colleague of mine who's connected to the New Israel Fund, which is another these really important organization. So I imagine it's somebody you probably know. But anyway, in terms of the bigger picture questions that you're asking, Josh, I mean, they're also devastating bigger picture questions. So my first book, as you say, was called Loving the Real Israel, and was really an attempt to say Israel is a flawed, complicated place, which is sometimes fabulous and sometimes, problematic. And we need to help people, American Jews, develop complex identities and complex relationships with Israel that include grappling with its flaws and include as well grappling with its beautiful aspects. And that's really what that whole book was about, and and in some ways I think that approach is really important. But I have another book coming out at the end of this year or beginning of next year. We don't have an exact date yet, which is kind of a follow-up, but maybe taking it in a slightly further direction. And the provisional title of that book is called The Struggle for the Soul of Judaism. And I think that's where we are. We are in a struggle for the soul of Judaism. There are two.
You're saying Judaism specifically, and not Israeli society, or but Judaism at its core. Yeah,
I think it's next, because I think it includes the diaspora as well.
Yeah,
I think that the Ben Gvir, Smotrich, the Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and Haredi approaches to Judaism. I know that those are not the same. The Ben Gvir and Smotrich approach is different in all kinds of important ways from the Haredi approach to Judaism. But those approaches, there's a kind of a political alliance, basically a political and religious alliance, really, between them in many ways. The only way that alliance is chipped away at is through the army, which is probably beyond the scope of this conversation, but maybe it's another one. But anyway, but there's this, they're pulling Judaism and through Judaism, Israeli society in a really, I think, scary, terrifying direction. And by we, I mean, liberal Jews, liberal Zionists. By the way, the word liberal is also a word that people tell me is just sometimes these days not so helpful, especially in the American context, because it has all kinds of other resonances. So I'm still kind of grappling for other words. I sometimes use the word now mainstream Zionists and mainstream Jews, but it's so I'm still kind of trying to figure out. But people who are not that, people who have a different vision of Judaism, people who have a pluralist, open, tolerant,
inclusive,
serious, inclusive vision of Judaism, which is and should be serious about Jewish texts and Jewish life and Jewish living and Jewish podcasts and like it's like this is like we need serious liberal Jews to realize that our Judaism is being pushed off a cliff, and if we don't do something about it now, then the Judaism, forget about Israel will become a country that we don't even want to have anything to do with, let alone try to develop complex relationships with. And Judaism will become a Judaism that we don't want to have anything to do with. I really think we're at this nexus point where Judaism itself is facing kind of two competing, kind of roads or paths ahead. And and I think it's a struggle. I think, I don't call people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich my enemy. Because I know who my enemies are, Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran. I know what an enemy is, but they are definitely my opponents in terms of what the future of Judaism will look like. And I think we have a struggle on our hands. I think if we lose that struggle, it will be devastating. And we have to see. So that's the difference between my first book and this one.
Let me dwell on that for a second,
yeah,
if I can, because I think that's a critically important distinction between enemies and opponents. And I think you touch on that in your Jerusalem Post piece, because how do you contend with so many people who see the Palestinian flag as a symbol of my enemy, as a symbol of Jew hatred, as a symbol of, some people even go as far as to compare it to a swastika to say, that's what that stands for. And seeing you with that brings up such visceral responses to them, and to say that, like, wait a minute, are you siding with our enemy? And I would even, go so far as to say that, maybe now Israeli society can come into post-trauma, moving on from just plain old trauma, in the years and months after October 7th. How do you understand who your enemy is, as those same Jews that you mentioned about the police saw you as the enemy for just wearing that, and versus the opponents, and what that means for security versus the soul and guf and neshama and all those important questions all into one here.
Yeah. Look, I have great empathy, and I understand people who think that, and I get it. I mean, I do get it. Hamas, and I said this in the Jerusalem Post piece, as you mentioned, Hamas are my enemy. There's just no two ways about it. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and Americans who support Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran, anti-Zionist, progressive left on campus who like shouting, Intifada revolution and globalize the Intifada and from the river to the sea. People who are supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, they are my enemy. They're calling for my death. They're calling for my country's destruction and to kill me and my children and everyone who I love, because we are Israelis or because we are Jews. So I get that, and I understand that, and they're my enemy too. And this is what I said in the Post article, we have to hold multiple truths together. That's one truth. And the other truth is that there are Palestinians who also march under that flag, or for whom that flag is also their flag, who want to live in peace with us, who engage in dialogue with us, who see us, want to live side by side with us in the future, who are the flag of the Palestinian Authority, who day by day, even since October the 7th, continue to be in day by day security cooperation with the army in the West Bank. And so the Palestinian flag is a complicated flag. Yeah, it's Hamas's flag. But yes, it's also the flag of Palestinians who want to live in peace with us. So, and of course, when I'm wearing it, and when I'm thinking about Palestinians, I'm thinking about the Palestinians who want to be in peace with us. And the irony is, having the two flags together, that's the opposite of what Hamas wants.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what Hamas, Hamas is against having those two flags together.
Right,
so to say, oh, you're supporting Hamas, no, this is this is anathema. Having these two flags together is
antithesis of
anathema.
Hamas.
It's the antithesis of Hamas.
I think actually it's an eye-opener to think about the Israeli flag, right? I mean, for years, we have had problems holding the Israeli flag because it has been appropriated by people whose values we disagree with completely, right? It has been appropriated by the extreme right wing. And during the 2023 pro-democracy protest, we reclaimed the flag, right? Because we said, no, it is our flag too. So obviously, the Israeli flag represents values that are very dear to us, but some people use it to reflect values that we don't agree with, to say the least. And I also want to mention that exactly a year ago, in the Reform Synagogue in Ra'anana, I was hurt by a violent mob, right? When there was a screening of the joint Israeli-Palestinian ceremony of bereaved families who choose to mark Israel Memorial Day, by actually getting together with the Palestinian counterparts and talking about the different future. And I think it goes the same because, the narrative against the ceremony is that it encourages terror and encourages hate, which is a fake news, exactly like what you're saying, right? It's actually the complete opposite. It's actually thinking about against violence and against war and against bloodshed and for a reality of peace and coexistence. And I think, as you say, I think those messages in Israel, especially after October 7th, are very complex and very hard for people to grapple, but it just makes them all the more important, right, to present this view. And I think so going back to the question that Josh has asked you and the problems of, feeling that Israel and Judaism is sort of slipping away from us, I think that both the incident in Ra'anana and your incident and many other very problematic incidents that we're seeing in the last few months just convince more and more Israelis and liberal Jews that we have to present an alternative, right? Instead of giving up, we actually have to lean in and show that this is not our Israel, this is not our Judaism. It causes people to understand that they can't stay silent. They have to raise a voice and pick a side. And in this sense, I think it's a very, very important call for action to raise a clear voice and to stand up for your values.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that has to happen. That has to happen in Israel and in the diaspora. And I think that we need, and if people are asking, well, what can I do about this? I think that going to your local synagogue on a Friday night, your local Reform synagogue on a Friday night, and being there and having a vibrant Friday night experience, or inviting friends round for a Friday night or a Shabbat morning event, and whatever, like living Jewishly in a Reform liberal way, that's an act of resistance, no less, in this struggle for the soul of Jews, because we need our side to be there. So this is not saying, this is not like the typical, woe is us, assimilation, etc., etc. I mean, this is about saying assimilation is bad. Assimilation is bad, not because, I don't know, it's the Jewish continuity and assimilation is bad because it means that we are losing people who we need to save the soul of Judaism, no less. And so we need people to strap in. If people care about this amazing, beautiful religion and history and culture going back centuries or millennia that we have, and don't want it to be taken over and turned into something abhorrent by people, certain people in Israel and in the diaspora as well, who support them, we've got to stand up and be counted, and we have to stand up and we have to win this battle.
And how do you see that manifesting? I mean, would you want a movement of people? I've seen all the memes, of people inspired by your kippah. I mean, I even saw, a New York Yankees and New York Mets kippah. I mean,
that was hilarious. Yeah,
very, very provocative. And I think that will be, people are getting arrested in the streets for that now. But, in terms of people embracing that, wearing a bathing suit, or as you say, a swimming costume, on the beaches of Tel Aviv, with Israelis and Palestinian flags. Is there one thing that you could say, here's what I would hope to come from this, onto the streets? And let's talk about hope for a minute,
Yeah. We'll only need 1 minute for hope conversation. No, joking.
But is there one thing that you would want people to go out and do? I mean, I of course, live inspiring Jewish lives.
It's hard for me to answer that question. I don't think there's one thing. I certainly don't think what I do is not right for everybody. I'm not saying that I don't. I mean, maybe if thousands of people were walking around the streets wearing a kippah like that, then things might change. So, but I think it's about just doing lots of little things. In Israel, we have elections coming up. we have to make sure there's a change in government, even though I am not amazingly optimistic. Speaking of hope, I'm not amazingly optimistic about the potential. If there is a change in government, it will be Bennett, Lapid, who are the presumably who are the new leadership of Israel, and they're more moral, certainly more moral leaders than the current one, and will create a coalition that's pretty different from the current one. But I'm not not hanging amazing hopes that they're going to change, at least with regard to the Palestinians, that they're going to change policy in a big way. Anyway, so I think there's just a lot of little things to do. It's about being an activist and trying to change this in whatever way you can, whether that's having conversations with people, whether that's about where you put your money, whether that's about what you put on your what you put on your head or on your sleeve or on what badge you wear. Maybe it's about engaging in conversation, hard conversations with friends or relatives who are from the other side and trying to have them see your side. I don't have a magic wand.
No, and I think
this.
that message is for Israelis and for diaspora Jews as well, right?
Yeah. I want to say something for diaspora Jews, and here's, we're probably running out of time. So here's one question to maybe to leave you with, and maybe we can come at this another time. Is like, what does it mean for diaspora Jews to walk around with those two flags? What does it mean in terms of how might that change what's going on campuses, in encampments, on campuses, and what's going on in high schools in terms of Jewish kids being bullied, and what's going on in society in general if the Jewish community began to appropriate, not every time, I'm not saying put the Palestinian flag on the bima next to the American and the Israeli flags. I'm not saying that, but what would it look like for the Jewish community to begin to be more out there about saying Israeli and Palestinian flags together? What does it mean? What would it mean if somebody walks through a college encampment, an anti-Israel, anti-Zionist thing, and saying, "Okay, here, those who want peace, can you sign on to both flags?" Right? There are Israelis who want to dismiss and to delegitimize the Palestinian flag. I, as a Jew, am saying, no, I want both flags here. Are you ready to join me with both flags? Or are you going to say, if from the river to the sea is really a call for peace, then you need to be legitimizing my flag and my narrative and my story as well. And that I wonder what if that might change a little bit some of what goes on in the larger American conversation. And that's probably for another conversation. But I sit here and think about that in Israel.
Yeah, I do think it is sort of a watershed moment in Israel, probably outside of Israel too, in raising awareness and in getting people to think, right? And I think in and of itself is important. And obviously getting people to understand that even if there are opinions that you don't like, well, this is something that's democracy is all about. And by the way, Judaism as well. So I think it's tremendously important. So really, we are getting to the conclusion of this session, and I want to ask you what we ask all of our guests, which is what makes you hopeful for the future of Israel, for the future of liberal Zionism. I know these are very challenging days, and definitely after your experience. But as you said, I think you've gotten a lot of very, very warm responses. I mean, it has been very, very terrible experience, and I'm sure you have been overwhelmed. And we're so thankful for you for joining us today. But can you find hope in this difficult time?
All right, so I'll answer that in two ways. The first phase is a little bit naughty, and I will give a plug for one of my other books. It's my, as well as the non-fiction stuff, I've been a novelist. I've written a couple of novels in the past few years, and my first novel, Perfect Enemy, is a novel about. It's like fiction. It's like Michael Crichton meets Fowler, and it raises all of these questions. It kind of raises. They said that life follows art or whatever. So, and it does. It kind of grapples with this question of hope versus the opposite of hope. And one of the central characters in it is somebody who's more hopeful. And so anyway, so it's a fun read, and it raises some of these questions from the perspective of like fiction, which is a totally different way of getting at these things. So anyway, that's my little plug done. What makes me hopeful? I think that the responses have been amazing. And I would say that the like I said, there is a struggle going on, but I think the responses to it show me that there's a lot more, people who either on our side or potentially on our side than you might have thought. And I would say that a lot of people have said things to me like, well, I don't agree with your kippah, but I really strongly uphold your right to wear it. And that's also, I think, a really important message of hope, because the moment that the moment you say, I may not like that, but let's talk about it, that's also a gateway to saying, okay, I may not, there's different gradations if I don't like it. One is, I think it's the flag of our enemies, but I still support your right to wear it. I mean, Allah, Nazis, marching in Skokie, which I think is not the right analogy, but people have been using that analogy. But then that the more you converse, the more you talk, the more you engage, that can then slide into, okay, I don't like it, and it's not like Nazis marching in Skokie, but I don't really agree with it for other reasons. And then and look, eventually, hopefully, it gets people to a place where they're saying, you know what, I may not be convinced that this is the right way forward, but I'm willing to listen. And so, that gives me hope that because we have to talk about both the freedom of speech issues and the bigger peace issues as well. We have to talk about that, and I think this has opened people's eyes to the fact that, okay, like, when you have this kind of really kind of egregious kind of thing happening from the police, we have to stop. We have to say, okay, where are we going as a society? What does this mean? And I think the moment you're able to open up that conversation about our future and who do we want to be and what are the best selves that we want to be, and yes, there are Palestinians who want to kill us and we have to defend ourselves against them, but let's think about that. What do we want our best selves to be with regard to people who out there who might want to live with us? And I think that maybe, just maybe, this incident might raise that question and put this question of who do we want to be as a people back onto the Israeli table. If 20 minutes in a police cell enabled me to do that, then that's a good use of 20 minutes of my time, I think.
Beautiful. Yeah. Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us in this conversation, especially given everything that's happened over the past week. And I'm sure whether this is your 15 minutes or hopefully even, beyond that, being in every article and every podcast and every, news, let's take advantage of it. And your story has clearly resonated with so many people, and we're really grateful for the chance to hear directly from you and not just about the incident itself, but what it represents more broadly. So really, toda rabba, and thank you so much for being with us.
Lachem, I really appreciate the invitation, the chance to talk with you, and keep doing your good work, guys, as well.
Thank you, Alex. And conversations like this are exactly why we started this podcast. This podcast exists because we believe Israel can be better for all who live here and for all who care about it from afar. But that takes honest conversations. It takes a partnership. If this episode meant something to you, please share it and help us keep this conversation going.
To stay up to date, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help us grow, go ahead, leave a 5-star review. Maybe something even like, hey, the next time I get arrested for wearing a provocative kippah, I'd want to be interviewed about it on the Pluralist Podcast. And then send this episode to someone who should be part of the conversation. And if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or marking an upcoming occasion, we'd love to hear from you. And as always, if there's a topic you want us to explore, please reach out and have a pluralist day. Toda rabba.
Thank you. Bye-bye.